All right, Shalom. Shalom, giving all praises, all glory, all honors unto Yahweh. All right, Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honors unto Yahweh by Hashem Shai, by Hashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles, the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the 144,000 rest of the hopeful elect out there. This is your brother, the priest of Zion from GMS Atlanta. Back with another edifying video. And this will be another edition of Israelites in History. And I want to play this clip. This is from a Facebook post. Just a video. Sometimes they got videos on there that go into some good things, not just like a personal profile site. They got information on there that people post, and it says so this video, it says during this casual, hold on, let me try to get it from playing. So it says during this casual conversation, it's revealed that black men, i.e. Moors, ruled Europe over 800 years. Now the Moors are Israelites, okay? The Moors that rule Europe are not Africans. They're Israelites. All right? Although they're dark-skinned, woolly-haired, like certain African tribes. But they're not Africans. The Moors are Israelites. They're Israelites that accepted the religion of Islam. But you also had Israelites at this time that were calling themselves Christians. This is what happened after the history of 70 A.D. The Israelites fled out of Jerusalem, and they fled into Africa, they fled into Europe, they fled as far east as Asia. Okay, the Israelites are scattered all over the world. One of the people that the Israelites became were the Moors. Moor just means black, right? It's in Spanish you say moreno, okay? It just means black, like niger, okay? It just means black. Because our people are different shades of brown, melanin. So in this video clip here, all right, in this video clip, it says TV series admit that black men rule Europe. And when I looked it up, I believe this is from Yellowstone. All right. So there's a series called Yellowstone. I believe you can stream it. And this is from one of, I don't know what season. I don't watch the show. But this is from Yellowstone. So what I'll do is, let me do this. Let me look it up. Yellowstone. You know what? Hold up. Let me see here. Yellowstone series. Okay, Yellowstone series, 5 seasons. Oscar and Emmy winner Kevin Costner is the marquee attraction of the ensemble cast in this drama series, starring as the patriarch of a powerful, complicated family of ranchers. So I guess they live in what's known as Yellowstone today. Okay, you got a spin-off series, 1923, 1883. So it might be from one of these series as well. I didn't know there was a spin-off. Anyway, let me just play the clip. Okay? So let me play the clip.
It exists today. It's called...
Right in a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Yeah, see, the Moors, so-called black men, ruled Europe. Those famous kings and princes that you hear about in the Middle Ages, or what they call the Dark Ages, those were Israelites. Okay, as a matter of fact, the first slaves, so-called black slaves, didn't come from Africa, like we was somewhere in a jungle swinging through trees. No, we were living in civilization, but so-called white man conquered Europe after we ruled for reasons such as the Black Plague. Why do you think they called it the Black Plague? Okay, you had the bubonic plague spread across Europe. Over 2/3 of the people there died. So that drastically um, reduced the numbers. And then after that time, you had so-called white people coming up into power. They joined the militaries in different kingdoms and countries, and ultimately they took over Europe from the so-called black man and put them in slavery. And then they went into Africa and brought us to America from Africa. And then the other tribes, the Northern Kingdom tribes, so-called Native American, Seminole Indian, so-called Latin, Hispanic tribes, they were already over here, and they brought them into slavery in slave ships and brought them to Europe. Read about the true history of Christopher Columbus, a.k.a. Cristobal Colon. So I'm going to play this again, but I'm going to just let it play through. You heard them laughing. That's how you people think out there. They go for these Edomites, be laughing, and you tell them it was really black people ruling Europe, and they were Israelites. And then they come on our videos and they scoff and they laugh. And you niggas do that too. We ain't no Israelites, and just all kind of stupid madness comes out of you niggas' mouths. And that goes for you negresses and you Negroes. All right, you men and women, y'all be talking crap. But all we're bringing out is the truth. They say that if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in the book. But we the ones got the books. The Israelites been bringing the books out the whole time, and guess what? The book is the Bible. But then there's other historical books that backs up who we are and backs up the Bible and proves us right and prove you niggas stupid. We're talking about the scoffers out there. Now, if you believe, good. We're just telling you the truth. And for you Edomites, you so-called white people that are Edomites, because you have so-called white people that are Israelites, and you have other nations that look like other people that look like other nations and ethnicities, but really they're Israelites. Their forefathers go back to the so-called black Spanish and Native Americans because we ruled over them. They were our slaves at one point in time. Now it's been flipped and we're their slaves. But guess what? It's going to flip again. But this time when we rule, we're going to rule as Israelites, not as the Moors, not as the Morenos, not as the Aztec guys, not as the Mayans, but we're going to rule as the 12 tribes of Israel. over the whole entire planet Earth. So let me play this clip again. See all the laughing and scoffing and mocking. So they put it in a TV show to hide it from you. And then they have them, the characters laugh at it. But like the guy said, it's true. It's true. And all the scoffing and mocking is coming to an end. All right? And we've been telling you for years that the so-called African Americans and the so-called Hispanics that are oppressed in this country, especially in America, we're not who you think we are as a people. We are the Israelites, and we're God's chosen people. And there's going to be a divine retribution upon you nations that have kept us down. So let me play this again, and then I'm going to go into some of the points that he pointed out. All right? Oh, yeah, and by the way, the Moors, so-called black men, were sleeping with those white women, marrying those white women, as our people do today. Right? You get so-called black men, they get with so-called white women, and then they have children, they get married, they start families. We've always done that. How are we going to be the kings of the earth and the gods of the earth, as you niggas like to say? You love that black power trip. But then when it comes to the other races on the planet, we don't have control over them. We can't be with their women. That's not a god. A god is going to be somebody that's all powerful. That's not a king. A king is someone that's going to have dominion. All the nations' women belong to the Israelites. Truth be told. Because they're going to be our servants. And they were our servants back when we ruled the world at one point, especially in Europe. In Asia too, but that's another lesson. So they're bringing these producers, these directors, Hollywood, and they put the truth in entertainment to speak amongst themselves, to tell the truth. And you regular average McDonald eating Americans, y'all don't get it. You don't see the truth. You people don't get it, but they put it in there. But the truth is coming out. All they're doing is confirming that, yep, them Israelites, man, they really been right. They've been telling us about the black people were ruling, You don't hear Dr. Umar and Tariq Nasheed and these other, they've spoken on it, of course, but that's not their premise. Their whole thing is about what can blacks do now, foundation of black Americans, what can you do now? But they don't really go into the history. When you go into that history and you find out how rich our people are on this planet Earth, whether it's the kingdoms of Mali and Timbuktu in Africa, to the kingdoms in France and Spain and Italy and England and Germany and Russia, you find out that we are a blessed people. But us as a nation, we are the Israelites. That's who we are. That's our true nationality. So I'm going to play it again. Let's check this out. Let's just put this in. for 800 years, which is in the prophecy it says 1,000 years, but we ruled more than France and Europe. You know. Okay, here we go. So it says this statement about black men ruling Europe for 800 years, a simplification of a complex historical period, while the Moors means black, who were primarily of Berber and Arab descent, for no, they were Israelites, but they lived in those regions and they followed Islam. See, Google's not going to give you. You got to dig deep. They're not giving it to you 100%. But if you read between the lines, that's what they're telling you. It said they did rule parts of the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal, for roughly 700 to 800 years. It's not accurate to say they were black men in the modern racial sense. Well, that's exactly what they're saying. So let's do this. Right? Let's do this. Let's go to Moors. And let's see what it says about the Moors. Right? The Moors, a Muslim group from North Africa, did not rule Europe for 800 years, but they did rule parts of the Iberian Peninsula. Yeah, because Moors, right, it says the Moors are a Muslim group. So when I say Europe, I'm speaking as a whole. It says for roughly that duration, specifically from the 8th to 15th centuries, their presence in the region began with an invasion in 711 AD and lasted until the completion of the Reconquista in 1492. Now, what happened in 1492? Christopher Columbus. That was when pretty much the so-called black man's rulership was over. Now, he mentioned about Andalusia. Okay? They put actual history in these shows. Mars ruled Andalusia. Let's look that up. Andalusia. Okay, here we go. So it says the Moors. Right, this is what I was looking for. This is what I should have put. I said Europe. So that's why they gave me that answer before. Andalusia. Let's see which one is. Okay, so it says the Moors, a group primarily composed of North African Berbers and Arabs. No, they were Israelites. Okay, the Moors were Israelites. That's why they called them that. But they were from those regions, and they lived in those regions. Like I said, the Moors embraced Islam, so they lived among the different Hamite tribes, the different Ishmaelites. Because our people, when we fled, remember the history. In 70 AD, the Israelites fled out of Israel, and what did they do? They fled into Africa. So they were there in North Africa. They were there among the Arabs. They learned their cultures. Years later, they embraced their religion. But they ruled, you know. It says the Moors, a group primarily composed of North African Berbers and Arabs, ruled the region of Andalusia in present-day Spain for nearly 8 centuries, beginning in 711 AD. This period, known as Al-Andalus, saw a flourishing of culture, science, and architecture. Remember what the guy said in the video about the architecture, leaving a lasting impact on the region's identity. The Moors in Andalusia, Spain's Moorish history. So that's why when you hear about certain people from Spain and they got a certain level of talent, whether they sing, they might be in the sports, athletes, a lot of them are Israelites. Even though you did have so-called white people, the Edomites, conquer that region later on. Okay, even the small hats, right? They were over there too. It says the Moors ruled parts of Andalusia from the early 8th until the late 15th centuries, 800 years of history. Okay? So that's real history right there. Real history. Okay, so let's see here. I want to put in black men, and they might give me history on the Moors again. Ruled southern. I'm just taking all the points that he made in the video and searching it out. That's what you do. Black men ruled southern France. Okay, the statement that black men ruled southern France is a simplification, once again, same thing they said, of a complex historical situation involving the Moors and their presence in Europe. While the Moors, who were predominantly North African Muslims, Israelites that embraced Islam, did control parts of the Iberian Peninsula. Iberian, listen, I did a lesson on this years ago. Iberian or Iberia goes back to Hebrew. The Hebrew word is Ibar. It's the Hebrew Peninsula, if you want to give it a name. Because the Israelites, the Hebrew Israelites, were ruling over that region, including Spain and Portugal, and some areas of southern France for several centuries. It's not accurate to say they ruled all of southern France. Well, I didn't say that. Let me see this. Ruled in southern France. Because they tried to be too specific. Right, what does it say? Well, it's not accurate to say black men ruled. Okay, if you want to be, they want to play semantics. The region, particularly Septimania, modern day Languedoc, was under the rule of the Moors for a period in the 8th century. These Moors, described as dark-skinned men by both Arab and, so they were different from the Arabs. By both Arab and European historians, different than the Europeans, did not represent a monolithic black population, but rather a diverse group with varying ethnicities and origins. Well, yeah, because the Moors some came from Spain, some came from Africa, some came from the Middle East, but they were all Israelites. But then you have the different articles here. When Spain and southern France were black. September 11, 2024, these conquerors from North Africa, see, they conquered. The Israelites conquered that region. Were not just soldiers, they were also bearers of a new culture, religion, and civilization because they were Israelites. So they were over that region. So the Moors ruled. I was just going by the statement that he mentioned in the... See, they didn't say... if they would have said Moors in that show, then it would have been too obvious. Let's go to images. And then you see the images. What do you see? What do you see? Look at this. You see this so-called black man, the Moors in Europe. And what is that here? It's looking over these so-called white women. Because we were in power. This is clearly an Israelite. Right? So-called black man. A Moor. And these are so-called white women. Right? And this is like a little servant woman over the side. You can tell who's who by the way they dress. So these are probably his concubines here. All right. I look up concubines. It means a second wife, but has a lower status than the actual wife. And then you have some that are servants. And look, they even have a little dog. You know, this is history right here. See, you're not going to, read about the Moors so much in these American schools. right? Here we go. The history of the Languedoc, the Moors. And what are they playing? Chess. Chess is a black man's game, an Israelite man's game. It's a game from the Moors. Okay? So I want to get a scripture. Let's go to Revelation, the 20th chapter. Revelation 20 and verse 4. Right? Or no, not verse 4. I'm sorry, verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. The bottomless pit is Europe. Because Europe is like a pit with no resources, like a bottomless pit. There's nothing there. Okay? And a great chain in his hand. Chain represents slavery. And he laid hold on the old dragon, that old serpent, which is represented by the Edomites, Cain in the reincarnation, and the wicked. And he laid hold on the dragon, the power structure of Europe, because when you go into the history of the Roman Empire in Europe, you'll see that after the 12 Caesars, Nerva, which was an Israelite, so-called black man, began to rule over the empire of Rome until the time that it split. And you got the Byzantine Empire in the west, and then you had the Eastern Roman Empire, which was, I believe, it was Constantinople. Constantine began to rule. You just got to do that history. Okay? And what happened to so-called white people that rule Rome? Where they got pushed out and then they got put into captivity. And then you had them in the caves. They were in the caves during this time, which is when the so-called Roman Empire went down. When the Roman Empire went down and the so-called white men went into captivity and they went into the caves, that's to them that's known as the Dark Ages, because that was when the Israelites, so-called dark men, black men, ruled over the empire and then ruled over the rest of Europe. And like I said, they went into Asia and Africa. Okay? So the dragon, the old serpent, the wicked, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And that's what happened. For 1,000 years, really more than that, but 1,000 years of time, the Edomites were in captivity. And that was when the Moors and other so-called black men, Israelites, because not all Israelites were being called Moors, they ruled over Europe, whether it be south of France, whether it be Spain, Italy, England. Okay, the Anglo-Saxons, which comes from the angelic sons of Isaac. All right. Isaac's angels, angelic, Saxon. Sons of Isaac. Anglo meaning angel. It says, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up. They were in slavery. And set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And then that's when you get the Renaissance period, and you get the time of Christopher Columbus and the Renaissance. All these different so-called black men, Israelites, ruling. And this is a map of Al-Andalus, right? And what do you see here? Granada. And Granada, when you do the history, was one of the last strongholds that the Moors held in Europe before before Esau took over, because they were going back and forth. They had certain battles when the Moors ruled. Okay, this is a book. A DVD. when the Moors ruled in Europe by Timothy Copestake. 700 years of little known history. So you're going to see that there is a lot more to the history of our people, so-called black men and women, than just Africa. You know? And you see here the whitewash images. That's what they did. They came in and they whitewashed the images. And this is from Wikipedia, Moors and the Moors. The Moors didn't look like that. No. Unless these are Arabs, and even then the Arabs were dark skinned too. And that's why they called them that. But what did the Moors look like? They were so-called black men. They were Israelites. Who and the Moors embraced the religion of Islam. And then you had the blacks that started Christianity as well. Constantine was an Israelite, all right? Constantine the Great was an Israelite. He was a so-called black man that was a pagan in Rome and then converted to Christianity and then turned it into a lie, pretty much, to all those different councils. You gotta know that history too of Christianity, and during the time of the Crusades, that's when you had Jake trying to get up into the Promised Land again, because we had a connection to that land, but it wasn't time. You know, you had the Arabs in that land, the Gentiles, okay? And that's another lesson, but Yahweh said that Jerusalem would be trodden down of the Gentiles. Revelation said that the outer court would have the Gentiles in there until that time be fulfilled. So who's really in that land today? It's not the Israelites, even though some of them are, but it's the people of Edom, the Amalekites. Okay, and then you see this image here when Spain and southern France were black. And then you got an image of a Moor here, an Israelite, but just with another culture. You know, today we call ourselves African Americans, but we're Israelites. We just have another culture. And then you have our people too that go into sovereignty and, you know, Moorish law and how the Moors helped build America, which that's true as well. That's more history. Okay. Here you go. What you see when the Moors ruled in France, and who is that? You see the so-called black man being flanked, being he got the white woman on his side, and he's talking to these other women. You see the Israelite woman here, the black woman. See, life was different. What, 1,000 years ago? You know, I'll just give you 1,000 years ago in the what is it, 2025, 1025? Our people were ruling, man. But what happened was around 1492. Well, really before that, the 1300s. You know, you had the let me see. Helped. Okay, this is what I wanted to do. Okay. Well, I wasn't trying to. That's all right. Moors ruled in southern France. Yeah, this is what I was looking at. Okay. But what I want to show is hey, listen, we had them white women. And there's nothing wrong with dealing with the so-called white woman. There's nothing wrong with dealing with these heathen women, but you don't marry them. Okay, and that's in the law. Okay, you can make them your concubines, but you don't marry them. But we deal with the Israelite woman, just as you see here, right? We deal with all women, white women, and if there were East Indian women, if there were Oriental, Asian, Japanese, Chinese women around, we deal with them too. Because that's who we are. This just shows you, this is our power. This is our power. You got, hey man, listen, a lot of our people, they don't understand and they scoff at what the truth is. That's why I was, cursing our people out, because y'all think y'all know something and you don't. Do the research. Okay? My man Fredro Starr said, do the knowledge. See, in America, they made statues of us eating watermelon, and they made fun of us. But when you go to Europe, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see these statues that are still around to this day. Our people decked in gold. We had our turbans on. That's our culture. We were calling ourselves by different names in different regions, but we were ruling. Look at this. Now, do you see a watermelon eating, cotton picking Negro here? Or do you see a prince? Do you see what looks like royalty, nobility? And guess what? This ain't Egypt. This ain't Africa. Our people gotta get that African, Egyptian crap out. Like we don't, like just because we dark skinned with woolly hair, we just ruled over Egypt and Africa. No. The whole planet Earth was ours at one time. And we came to the United States. And we came over here to America. All right? And you had and we did trade with the Native American tribes over here in America. Just so you know. Okay, that's what I want. Okay. It says the Moors from North Africa. The Moors from North Africa conquered and ruled Spain for 781 years, from AD 711 to 1492. Like I said, what happened in 1492? That was when it was time for Esau to rule, the Renaissance period. Okay? Oh, that's what I was going to look up too. All right, so you got the Black Plague, also known as the Black Death, which this is what happened. And they call it the Black Death. The reason being was because that was when the blacks in Europe, at that time, the Israelites, it was a plague that swept through Europe, and that, like I said, reduced our numbers before. And then you had, and this was the 1300s. Excuse me. It says the Black Death was a bubonic plague pandemic that ravaged Europe and Asia in the mid 1300s. Yeah, around the 1350s. That was when the Edomites had started to come into certain places of like I say this, certain positions and places of power. They were mingling themselves because we had to clean these Edomites up, man. The Edomites, they were coming out of the caves. We put them in captivity. We dealt with their women, and we ruled over them. But during this time, the Lord, because of the prophecy, all right, let me read that, the prophecy, Revelation chapter 20 and 3. And it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him. So the Edomites were underneath the rule of the Israelites under a different name during the time of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, the medieval times. He should deceive that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And that's when he was loosed. He was loosed. He was loosed. And this is one of the reasons why, because the Lord does everything through a science, right, through a process. And they were able to get into position of power. And then eventually, during the time of Christopher Columbus, about 100 years later, 1400s, our people were finally brought down out of Spain. We ruled in England for a time. Okay, we did continue to rule in England up until that time. That's where you get Queen Victoria and her ancestors. Her forefathers were so-called black men, just so you know. Queen Victoria. But then you had the Edomites get up in there, and then you have the royalty of Europe you have today, so-called white people, Edomites. But they took over from the blacks that ruled over England. The blacks that ruled over England. So this is what happened to help bring us down. It is believed to have originated in China in 1334 and reached Europe through Sicilian ports, which you have a lot of Sicilians that are Israelites, because you had black people ruling over Sicily and Italy, the Moors, in the late 1340s. Spread by fleas on rats aboard trade ships, the Black Death was one of the deadliest pandemics in history, killing an estimated 25 to 60% of the Eurasian population, or 75 to 200 million people over several years. So the Moors were brought down, and the Edomites were brought up. You know, the white Europeans were put into power because of the prophecy in Revelation, the 20th chapter. So I just wanted to go into that history right there. With that, I just want to show you the clip from that video. Yeah, where the south of France was ruled by black men at one time. So anyway, with that, I say shalom.